I care too much. Eyewitness is a beautifully told story and a TV show people need to look towards who are interested in storytelling. If you haven't heard of the show, its genre is labeled drama, which I find it more of a thriller, to be quite honest. I think of dramas as Disney Channel, "You lied to me, you whore," which isn't the case for what this show is. Let me pick you up to speed on what the show's about if you forgot or didn't know. Also, minor spoilers ahead. I'm merely going to be talking about how good the show is, in detail to hook you into watching it. So if for some reason you like going in blind, then close your eyes and watch the rest of this video. Most people would argue that the reason the show is so good is some of the main two roles are these two teenage boys who are gay and like each other. However, this isn't the case at all. Sure, the fact that Lucas is closeted drives a lot of the story, but the fact that, OMG, two boys kissing in a show? Wild! Isn't why the show is good. And if anyone merely views this show from a shipping standpoint, is missing a lot of what makes this show actually good. The show starts off with our main character Helen, listening to an audiobook on how to foster a teenager. She is currently fostering Philip with her husband Gabe, while Philip's real mom needs to clean up herself from being addicted to drugs. We then go to the two teenage boys, where Philip films for Lucas so he can be sponsored for those sick whips. But when they go back to Lucas's dad's cabin, they become a little bit more than bros. A car pulls up, causing them to hide, but they end up witnessing a triple homicide in the cabin and knock the fourth guy out as he's about to shoot Philip. The boys panic, throwing evidence into the woods and river, and then saying, "We can't tell anyone because I can't let people know I was making out with a boy.
I'm not gay like you."
Problem is, plot twist, Helen, Philip's foster mom, is the sheriff in this small town. Now what's so neato about this plot? I give you symbolism. You know, that stupid thing you learn in English class where white equals innocence and black equals death? Oh, Jesus, man, I thought that was a fun colors game. So what the heck is symbolism anyway, besides fucking colors and shit? Well, it's a key way of identifying something by the way we as a society have grown up. It can be as simple as someone smiling. We know that that person is happy without them having to say, "Yo, I'm happy." It's a way our eyes can read a situation without having voiceover to be like, "This is how I'm feeling, you stupid prick." It can obviously be deeper than that, but that's essentially what it boils down to. You know when you're watching practically anything nowadays and you're slapped across the face with a long paragraph of, "This is the story, understand yet?" You're dumbed down as a viewer that context clues are too much for you to understand. In Eyewitness, there's no voiceover. Crazy, right? There's not even a goddamn character that's purely there for the audience to explain what the fuck is going on. They have actual conversations that you would discuss with another character. The rest is up for the audience to interpret, and you can take as much from it that you want, which is already beautiful. Now, I'm someone who loves reading into things, especially in film. I didn't take 4 years of AP English and 2 years of film studies to not apply this shit to my favorite TV show. Oh yeah, did I mention? This show is my goddamn favorite. It takes a lot for me to absolutely love a show. This show does have some flaws where the dialogue feels off. However, those cases are very far and few.
Okay, you didn't have to say that.
This is a motorcycle.
Thanks.
Each main character has a certain symbolism to them, starting with Helen. She's a very by-the-books kind of lady and such a badass. God, I love her. Look at her, she's so cool! Helen's clearly learning the ins and outs of trying to be a wife and mother, but can't leave her life of crime solving behind. How do I know all this? Fucking symbolism! There are clearer ways, like when Gabe saltily doesn't respond because she's too focused on her work, like the classic oaring alone scene I love. Look at that man. Ooh, so salty. Ooh, Helen's too focused on her work. Ooh, licking at his face. Yep. So salty. However, there are subtle ways they expand upon this idea. When the case is just brought to light with Lucas's dad coming to Helen and saying, "The dead guys, help." Gabe and Helen are at breakfast, but not even before Bo is out the door, Helen's wha-bam! She's strapped up and ready. She was clearly ready for this case, and it's clear by how fast she's ready to see this triple homicide. She's itching to be doing something exciting in her field again. Helen then leaves Gabe at home to try and mend the strain between Philip and them. Helen is a character who differs from her words and her actions. She doesn't intend to. She wants to be both a full-time crime investigator and a wife, but it's impossible for her to do that without giving up one or the other. Now this next scene. Oh! It gets me rock hard! God, I gush about this scene to anyone who will listen. The bee scene. Oh man, the bee scene. There's this scene where Helen and Gabe are cuddling in bed. Cute stuff. When Helen sees a bee on the window and says, "Oh shit, he's back. The bee's back! She then captures it and releases it out a window in the next room over. Odd, right? I remember watching this and being like, what? Why is this important? Is it telling me that Helen's just the bee gatekeeper? I mean, as cool as a title as that is, I did some digging and found out. Oh, I found out! Bees are widely known for being workers. That's why they're fucking called worker bees. Anyway, this is clearly another clever way of showing that Helen's work is very important to her. She's trapped in her work. She tries to release it out in a different room, trying to separate it between home and work. But we all know that that bee is coming back. She even established that the bee has already been there. Her work and her family will always collide in ways that she doesn't want. As irritating as it is, she won't give up on either. Philip. Philip is the brown-haired, doughy-eyed boy that we all love and adore. He's fallen in love with a popular boy at school who has a girlfriend, but secretly has the hots for him too. He's looking at Lucas through a lens. Like he does when he records Lucas! Holy sh! This whole mentality causes him to be blinded by his own puppy love, and assuring that Lucas stays closeted and that no one finds out, they eyewitnessed a triple homicide. Philip gains his confidence throughout the season, telling Lucas that he's not gonna be his little bitch, and then act like he's some freak at school.
You can't hit me in the face, not want to be seen with me like I'm some freak, and then you want to fool around. No, you gotta decide.
What's there to decide?
It's good, and it shows that Philip gains more confidence in himself as he helps a lost boy find out who he is. There are two things in particular about Philip that scream, read into this more. Philip's white lies and a sphere of water. Philip's lies are not only with the big stuff, but also with little things to cover his tracks. In the first episode, Philip sneaks out and goes to see his mom in the city. When Gabe confronts him about it, Philip claims it was his mom's birthday. Helen clearly sees immediately through it, and he moves along. When Helen discusses the case with Gabe in earshot of Philip, Philip asks what happened and says, seeing a dead body sucks, accidentally talking about the dead bodies he saw the night before, but in a later episode tries to explain that he saw his mom boyfriend die on a yellow couch. But Helen sees through that as well. They do touch on Philip's lying in an episode, but Philip claims he doesn't know why he does it. I think the reason he does it is because he's an outcast. His mom's a junkie, he's gay in this small town, so he creates little lies to seem more likable. Kids do it all the time. I think everyone's guilty of it at some point or another. This also seeps out when Philip's confidence grows, causing his lying to stop as well, when, surprise, he eventually tells Helen what happened at the cabin. He not only doesn't desire the need to be liked anymore, but also becomes more confident with it being himself. His fear of water. This fear is established in episode 7, saying,
I don't swim.
He later says if things got too bad, he'd pretend he was underwater where everything was okay. Yet, that's as far as he goes into the matter. As frustrating as it might be to see that things aren't explained directly, it's, again, a good use of letting the audience read between the lines. I imagine that he probably did used to go under the water and didn't want to come back up. It reminds me of this book that I read in our car ride to San Francisco called All the Bright Places. I don't want to spoil that story too much, but all you need to know is Finch, character in the book, likes to swim and holds his breath for incredibly long times underwater. I think those two share similar attributes, and I wouldn't be surprised if they both wanted to end up at the bottom of a lake. This is about a boy recovering from a life that's now behind him. Now Lucas. How do I say this? Lucas is a little shit, okay? I think we can all agree that he's a manipulative guy, but he's manipulative because he's grown into a masculine-heavy household. His father, Bo, would never want him to be that guy, which I can wholeheartedly sympathize with. I'm not justifying his stupid decisions, but it's a reason behind his madness.
You don't get it. I don't want to be that guy. And my dad, he doesn't want me to be that guy. And Rose, no one wants me to be that guy.
Well, what if you are?
You can tell Bull really hammers in how you act around other men when hanging out. In one of the first introductions to Philip and Lucas's characters, we have Philip take a sip, and then Lucas wipe the drink and then take a sip himself. Okay, so now we know. What? He's a germ freak? Still thinks cooties exist? Then when we're watching the last episode of the season, we have a conversation between Bo and Gabe. Gabe takes a drink and hands it to Bo, and then what does Bo do? Wow, that looks familiar. Context clues, people. This is important shit, and it goes wildly unnoticed. This show probably is never going to get a second season, and do you realize how much that upsets me? God! aren't even as important anymore. Fuck. I'm sorry. I just want credit where credit's due. Throughout pretty much the rest of the season, Lucas flip-flops between deciding what he wants to do and what everyone else wants him to be. It's a tough call that every teenager has to make, but in this case, it's coming out to your homophobic father and telling the cops that you witnessed a triple homicide. You know, teenager stuff. The investigation that Helen is working on goes hand in hand with Lucas coming to terms with being himself. When he admits that the triple homicide happened, he will also admit that he loves Philip. It's a life or death situation in his eyes, and when he admits both things, then he now has to make them reality. With a mixture of PTSD and being the popular kid at school with the hot girlfriend, it's not really a choice he thought he'd ever have to possibly make. We eventually see Philip and Lucas essentially switch roles during the end of the season, when Lucas is no longer panicked about the world around him, while Philip becomes the paranoid boy, making us hyper aware that Philip is taking root in this whole situation more than anyone, as he, understandably, gets the worst of the PTSD symptoms. Without Lucas, Philip would have been shot, and without Philip, Lucas wouldn't have someone to look to and realize that being who you are is okay. They both need each other. Even if the show ended up with them just being friends, I would have been okay with that. This whole story is about revealing things about you, whether it be monster or man. Both are necessary evils in order to be a perfectly balanced person. Here are some other technical things that I found massively compelling about this show. They seem insignificant, but adding these small details shows that this show was made with love. First, you have the opening shot. It opens with a lone boat sitting out on a lake. In and of itself, it shows this feeling of desperation and loneliness. There's nothing around this boat, and it's already an incredible way to start off with the show. But as the last episode wraps up, we see Helen and Gabe laying in a boat, and it pans out to the same shot we saw when we first watched this show. See, not only is the show about being your true self, but also expressing it with others and the idea of trust. Gabe and Helen might be alone on this boat in the middle of the lake, but they're out there together. Even when it seems like you're completely alone, there's always someone there for you. So you may have watched this and asked, "Hey Cameron, why'd you lower the saturation on this beautifully colored show?" This, my friends, is the coloration of the show. I've talked to loads of people about why it's colorized this way. Some people tell me it's to emphasize how gritty the show is. Others say it's stupid as fuck to even talk about this. But here in Cameron Bear's brain, we don't let anything just be a thing. This is important, damn it! In a scene where Helen is trying to get on Philip's good side, she buys him film for his Polaroid camera that Lucas bought him. So cute. But when Helen and Philip are discussing Polaroids, Philip remarks on how Polaroids make everything seem so old, and for 30 seconds, time stops. The show feels like it's colorized like a giant Polaroid film. The show is very much Philip and Helen's story. They're both trying to escape a certain past that haunts them, and both love the look of Polaroids. It's not really symbolism, more so an artistic take on how the world is viewed, but I found it interesting nonetheless. Lastly, I want to discuss the title sequence itself. Boom. Wait, let me clean my glasses. There we go. Eyewitness. Again, the question is, why show this when you could just as easily have a black screen and go, bleh. Eyewitness. So I looked into the significance of ripples on the water. 3 birds and a title coming into focus after focusing on the water. So the ripples and focusing are pretty easy to figure out. You have ripples, meaning that an action cannot be reversed. This can apply to pretty much every character in the show, not just the ones I highlighted. You have Helen who, if she focuses too much on her job, will lose her family. Philip, if he breaks Lucas's trust, where will that leave their relationship? Lucas, if he comes out, he can't undo that. Next, the focusing. It's about perspective. Throughout the series, we are put in everyone's shoes. We're meant to sympathize, or at least understand everyone's motive and thinking. This is about who we're thinking of in the selected moment. If the scene is showing how Helen wants some alone time with Gabe during her lunch hour, then we understand why she's upset. You can either look at this situation from a big picture or small details. In the big picture, Gabe and Helen want to create a bond with Philip and try to make him part of their family. But the small details are that Helen already gets so little bonding time with her husband. She wants to make it count where it's worth it in her eyes. But now we get to the bit that makes me crazily happy. The birds. Well, okay, there's 3 of them. 3 typically represents the saying of everything comes in threes, or more spiritually, the mind, body, and soul. Okay, interesting. So maybe it's about eventually connecting these 3 ideas with the main characters by the end of the show. But, oh! The real biter, the real kicker. I listened back to the sequence and I was like, there has to be a clue to what those birds are, since they're incredibly silhouetted. I heard this sound, and fuck. Sounds like seagulls. Do I see seagulls? Ding 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 ding! You've won a prize, and what is it? Seagulls! Seagulls is a reminder to find our voices and be fearless about speaking our minds. Many cultures associate the seagull with freedom. Are you kidding me? That's what I've been talking about this entire goddamn time. I could have said, Eyewitness is good because seagull is there, is right there. That's what the show's about. We can go home, people. The show is incredible and they thought of everything. All these people, beautiful. I love them. Mwah! The show is amazing. I could talk about every single character and why they're written so well. But yeah, just go watch it.